So, Florida already is trying to make sure that trans athletes don't get to do shit. That's already a problem we deal with there. But apparently, they're wanting to take it one step further and getting a third-party company called Activate involved so that they can track students' periods. Because, you know, that's not creepy. First one we have here is from Raging Horse Girl. It says, my files are too powerful and deleted my message twice, but this is Suris 1, 2, and 3. They also said if you want to use them in thumbnails, feel free. They were hypothetically made for that purpose. Fair enough. So my only thing is I try to avoid using stuff that I have not paid for in thumbnails for the most part, with, you know, a few exceptions. Ivana Dragmeyer, when I used their Marjorie Titan Green, and then in the past, back when I had a less, I didn't have as much of an understanding of like how much goes into doing fan art stuff. So I would use fan art more often in thumbnails without thinking about it. So I was like, it's fan art, it's fine. But anyway, still, thank you very much. I do appreciate it. The next one we have here is from Living Trash Can. Swimsuit Suris, love the model. Hope you like the drawing. Thank you very much. The next one we have, and the last one we have, is from Smacko. You did it, Suris. You broke me. We have Goopy Gamer. Mingle my MAGA broad. He's still looking for love on MAGA Mingle. This boy, he's doing his best. Hypothetically, if this man could get laid. But this man cannot get pussy. He has done his best, and it's just not enough. Anyways, as always, everybody, thank you all for your fan art submissions. If you want your fan art to be shown in a future video, the best way to do so is to drop it into the fan art section of the Discord. With that all said, let's go ahead and get right into everything. If you already have... Sorry. Tired. 24-hour stream. Does things to your brain. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the bell notification icon. Those are cool things you can do. And if I don't mention them, YouTube will beat me. Okay. Oy, oy, oy. So technically I went over this with Vice Rhino. But I don't see the harm in covering it solo, because there are more thoughts I might end up having on this. And this was already on my docket to begin with, so... Whew. Just as I've tried everything except respecting women and nothing has worked. So, Florida asking women athletes about their periods is already kind of an issue post Roe v. Wade. So think about it. If you criminalize abortion, and then you ask people to track their periods, at a basic level, you should understand the problem there. If you track the app and you're like, oh, you missed your period for 3 months, and then suddenly the periods go back to normal, if that data gets subpoenaed at any point, which they can hand over this data in case of a subpoena, now you might be able to criminally charge, you know, anyone. It's already bad enough when you can do it to, you know, full-grown adults who have full consent to everything that they are doing. But when there are minors involved, now it's like, oh God, we have to do everything in our power to put this kid in jail. It's kind of sickening, isn't it? So let's go ahead and take a look at the actual article itself. Seizures, fainting spells, allergies. Florida student athletes have to report all these medical conditions when they register to play for the season. But all female athletes in the state are also asked to report their history of menstrual periods. When they got their first period, how many weeks passed between periods, and when they had their last one, to name a few. The information is reported on athletes' annual physical form, which they are required to fill out with a physician and turn into their school's athletic director. The questions have been put to students across the state for 2 decades, most often on a written form on paper, but this fall, when some districts took them took the form to a digital platform kept by a third party, parents and doctors began raising red flags. Their concerns have been heightened both by a shifting political landscape criminalizing abortions and scrutinizing transgender athletes and the growing threat to medical privacy in a digital age. All of the forms, whether paper or digital, are subject to subpoena. Pediatricians are appalled that this sensitive medical information is stored with the school district and that coaches can see it. I don't see why school districts need to access that kind of information, said Dr. Michael Holler, a pediatric endocrinologist based in Gainesville. It sure as hell will give me pause to fill it out with my kid, he said, with his own teenage children. Yep, when was your first menstrual period? When was your most recent menstrual period? How much time do you usually have from the start of one period to the start of another? How many periods did you have last year? What is the longest time between periods last year? None of that information is good to put in the hands of law enforcement. I'm sorry. Law enforcement are not your friends, okay? Their goal is not to be your friend. Their goal is not to serve and protect. Their goal is to do whatever capital demands. And unfortunately, their paychecks rely on oppressing you. So just know, this year in Palm Beach County, nearly all athlete registration forms were moved online, meaning the athlete's reproductive data is now stored on a third party stored by a third party, a software company launched in September 2021 named Activate. Broward, Hillsborough, and Sarasota counties are also rolling out Activate in schools, according to Palm Beach County District officials. But both sides of the political spectrum are troubled by the questions involving menstruation. Abortion rights activists who stress reproductive privacy in the wake of the Supreme Court's overturning of Roe v. Wade worry that women's menstrual history may be used to prosecute them if they terminate a pregnancy. Yeah, that's kind of the biggest issue there. It's the fact that you might be prosecuted simply for having like a miscarriage. What's the difference between a miscarriage and an abortion is all the information is private. As far as law enforcement is concerned, none. There's no difference between the two. Because while you may go, well, actually, they are different in certain ways. Right, but if somebody doesn't know about your pregnancy, then you having a miscarriage and you getting an abortion look pretty much identical. And how are you going to convince them that you had one and not the other with no evidence to back it up besides hearsay? Vocal contingents of parents want the forms to stay offline in the name of their parental rights over their children's data, which they worry about being leaked or sold. I feel like that information just doesn't need to be given at all. Sorry, don't use a period tracking app. Don't use anything that tracks your periods. It's nobody's goddamn business, especially not in today's world. So I think we're all on edge right now, said Holler. He added that he has very little reason to have faith in our state leadership to keep data provided to educational institutes private. And then, of course, women rethink period tracking apps. In a post-Roe world, menstrual history and patient privacy have been cast in a new light following the Supreme Court's June 24th decision in Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization, which overturned the constitutional right to have an abortion. Abortion rights advocates quickly began to share fears that women's social media messages and tracking data could be used against them. Those fears materialized in Nebraska this summer when police charged a 41-year-old woman and her teenage daughter with an illegal abortion and burning and burying of the daughter's fetus. Police subpoenaed Facebook messages they say showed the teen's pregnancy was not miscarried, as the first two contended. Jessica Bergs told her 17-year-old daughter in a message to take abortion pills that she had obtained to end the 23-week pregnancy. Abortion in Nebraska is illegal after 20 weeks of gestation. Bergs and her daughter were charged with a felony for removing and concealing or abandoning a body. After investigators reviewed the Facebook messages, the prosecutor added a felony charge of illegally performing an abortion. Both women have pleaded not guilty and are awaiting trial. I'm sorry. Can I just go over a thing real quick? Who's the victim here? Who's the victim here? Because don't say the fetus. The fetus doesn't have a brain yet. The fetus doesn't feel shit yet. That fetus, even if you want to use my argument that I've used countless times that you can grant personhood at any point, even if you want to do that, that fetus isn't a fucking person. I'm sorry. It's not. I can grant personhood for the sake of argument. I'm willing to do it. I don't think it's necessary to. I think it's stupid to. So who's the victim of the crime here? Who? Now that the yeetus fetus has been deleted, well, who was the victim? Because from my angle, I don't see a fucking victim. I see a little clump and a teenager with trauma. If anything, the teenager's the victim here. And yet, law enforcement, again, they're not your friends. They're going to look at that and go, ah, yes, we have to make up a crime. We'll pretend it's murder. We'll pretend real hard. And then, of course, online health data tracking has been in the crosshairs before. Also, how's it going, Oxnard Montambo? Welcome to this cringe side of the internet. I do this whether it's 5 in the morning on Twitch or whether it's 5 p.m. on Twitch. This is just my shtick. I do politics as a VTuber. It's cringe. It's fine. In 2022, the Federal Trade Commission filed a complaint against Flow, a free app that tracks users' periods and pregnancy data, after the company shared that information with third parties without limits on how the data could be used. That violated privacy policies in the... does this tell you how far into an article you are? That's weird. That's so weird. Anyway... This violated policies in the EU and the US that require notice, choice, and protection of personal data transferred to third parties. The company settled with the FTC in January, but that settlement did not include restrictions on what types of data can be subpoenaed and which third-party apps can be partnered with. It said there's been a lot of discussion, even at the level of the White House, about how individuals' menstrual history should not be widely shared because it could be used to target them in the case of state regulations on abortions. Although the nation's health privacy laws, known as HIPAA, do not apply to most schools and school districts, Activate's contract says all student information will be kept confidential. But activists point out that apps that collect medical data are covered by HIPAA only if they are run by medical care providers, which leaves many users without any protection. Apps that are based in the US can be subject to subpoena. Activate's private policy says it can as well. They can turn over student data to legal authorities. The districts can store paper forms and can be forced as well to turn them over. Wait Kivex said it was scandalous and shocking that student athletes are being asked to share their reproductive history on registration forms. And then, of course, it points out that abortion is illegal in Florida after 15 weeks of gestation. There's another part in here that said why an athlete's mental history can be important for doctors to know. And that's all fine and dandy, but that's not important to the conversation here, because menstrual history can be important for doctors to know. But I don't know if 2 and 2 being put together is hard for some people. Coaches aren't doctors. It's not their job. Not part of their job description. It's not a thing they do. So they don't need that information. You know who else isn't your doctor? Your teachers. Your principal. You know who else really isn't your doctor? Like really isn't your doctor? Police. Lawyers. The judge in the courtroom. None of them deserve any of that fucking information. So don't give it to them. Is there anything else in here that is... Is anything else here that matters? How do coaches know about athletes' medical conditions from parents, not forms? School districts, not the state. Store athletes' health data. Okay. more information, more contextualizing information, but nothing that is going to significantly change our verdict here. The verdict is, this is creepy as shit and awful. And yet, it's normal here now. Welcome to America. Whenever people have made the joke that the United States is Handmaid's Tale, I feel like that's not a joke. I feel like the longer and longer this goes on, the more we have to accept.
We're not gonna give into the delusion. This is...
Shut the fuck up. God, I've said it before and I'll say it again. The person who decided autoplay needed to be a thing on videos did not deserve human rights. Guantanamo Bay should have a only one person in it.
While our hearts
a single person, and it's the person that developed autoplay. That is the one viable prisoner of that area. That's it.
Hello and welcome
That's it. I don't need autoplay on every one of these. Holy shit. Can I recommend a Firefox plugin for you? You could, but I don't use Firefox. So it ain't gonna do me much good. Jesus. Anywho, with that said, let me know what you think in the comment section below when this goes up on YouTube. I'm sure that there's not going to be a whole lot more that can be added to. It's really creepy for the state to want a whole bunch of information like this from you, and it's really creepy to normalize it, especially when minors are involved. Especially when the people who are trying to involve those minors accuse everybody else of being groomers, and yet here they are. Anywho, let me know your comments. Hit the like button if you haven't already, subscribe if you haven't already, and as always, insert end of video tagline here.